Hi, fun recap here. Today, I'm going to be explaining a Ghanaian movie named Aloe Vera. Have fun watching. The movie begins with a scene where a town called Kelewele were having their annual debate for children. The topic for this year's debate was the Aloe and the Vera, which came first. The principal speaker for the team that said the Aloe came first accidentally insulted her opponent in his defense for the motion that the Aloe came first, and she retaliated. This led to the greatest misunderstanding between the families as they continued to insult each other just because of the topic, which came first. This is how a simple debate caused the greatest division in Kelewele. From that day onwards, all who said the Aloe came first chose the color blue and lived with it, and all who said the Vera came first also chose the color yellow and lived with it. A border was created and nothing must cross. This went on for years, and as the population of the people increased, the hatred they had for each other also increased. No Aloe was allowed to speak to a Vera, and no Vera was allowed to speak to an Aloe either. A rule was made that if anything that belongs to an Aloe crossed to the Vera's land, a whistle must be blown by a Vera. That was their call for help. Also, if a Vera or anything which belongs to them was seen on an Aloe's land, their whistle must be blown. Blowing of the whistle signifies a call for war, which means there must be war. Each of them produces men to fight for their people, and whoever loses the war becomes a slave of the other. During one of their wars, the daughter of the governor of the Veras, called Veralyn, and the son of the governor of the Aloes, called Aloe, fell in love with each other at first sight. Even though they couldn't meet because of their family's superstitious beliefs, they saw each other through their windows all the time, and their only medium of communication was through letter writing. They used to write letters to each other to know more about themselves. They tried asking their parents about their history and if they could actually just talk to each other, but they both made the same answers, which were that they were their enemies and that was impossible. They were both disappointed that they couldn't meet and discuss. They continued to write letters to each other through their windows until one day they finally decided to disobey the rules and then meet up at a faraway land where none of their family members could see them, to prevent any form of war or misunderstanding. While they were conversing, Aloe, who was Aloe's sister, saw them and reported Aloe to their parents that she saw her brother talking to a Vera. Because of that, Aloe was called by his father, and his mother also gave him a strong warning to stay away from the Vera. But this didn't prevent Aloe from meeting up with Veralyn as they agreed on earlier on the faraway land. After that scene, Aloe's mother tried talking to her son as she realized he was happier than usual, but he just ignored his mom and told her that he was going to see his uncle Aloe. After Aloe's departure, his father called Aloe, his elder sister, and told her to follow her brother and find out what he's up to. Aloe Maria followed Aloe to Aloe's house secretly. Back in Aloe's house, Aloe and Aloe were discussing about teaching because Aloe was a teacher and how he was finding some challenges as a teacher in their community. And Aloe tried encouraging him that everything was going to be fine, that he would even assist him. He also seized the opportunity to tell his uncle about his love story and how he has fallen in love with Vera. Immediately, Aloe heard love. She rushed home to go and inform their father that Aloe was in love But what she didn't know was who he was in love with, because she didn't wait to hear that part, which made her father a bit disappointed in her. Aloe continued his conversation with Aloe about how he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Vera. Aloe disapproved of this because it was never going to be possible, and also because of their beliefs and how the Veralins were their enemies and no good people. Even though Aloe was disappointed, he was a bit happy that his uncle agreed to keep his secret for him. Back in Aloe's house, his father and mother were discussing about Aloe's newfound love, and his father was telling his mother how happy he was that his son was finally growing into a man, and wished that Aloe was in love with Aloe Maria, who was Alobe's daughter. On Aloe's way home, he came across Aloe Maria's house. Aloe Maria was happy to see him and immediately ran over to have a short conversation with him. But Aloe brushed her off, saying that even though she was beautiful, he doesn't have any interest in her, and that she should be careful of his father. This left Aloe Maria disappointed, but she couldn't do anything about it. Veralyn also kept thinking about Aloe, and her mother finally realized the changes in her daughter, so she asked her about it, and she told her mom that she was in love. But when she finally opened up about being in love with an Aloe, her mother got disappointed and told her to fall out of it, that it was never going to be possible, and that the Aloes were no good people. Even though she saw the sadness in her daughter's face, she knew she was doing the right thing. Immediately, Veralyn's father walked in and they brushed off the topic, but she warned her daughter to stop talking about Aloe and decided to keep the secret. The next morning, Aloe and Veralyn decided to meet in the woods as promised the day before. They left their respective homes and went to the faraway land, and that day they had so much fun without any interference from their families nor friends. When night fell and they still hadn't arrived home, their families began looking for them everywhere. The Aloes were looking for Aloe, and the Veras were looking for Veralyn. Luckily for them, upon their return, even though they didn't know how to sneak back into their rooms, Aloe's uncle Aloe saw them, and because she knew about their secret affair, he decided to help them. He asked them to sneak into his house and spend the night there, so they could go back home the next morning when everywhere was calm, and they agreed to that. That night, even though the Aloes and Veras were worried looking for Aloe and Veralyn, they were happy because that was the night they got the opportunity to spend their first night together. The next morning, Veralyn's father went to confront his daughter about where she was the previous night. Upon reaching his daughter's room, he found blue papers all around. These were letters Veralyn has just received from Aloe. He immediately blowed his whistle, and that meant there had to be war. After the war, the Aloes lost, and Aloe's father locked him up in his room, preventing him from being able to communicate with Veralyn. Veralyn was very sad. She kept writing letters to Aloe every single day, but there was no reply. She also found out she was pregnant, and this made her even more sad. Veralyn kept on writing letters to Aloe, even though she had no reply and refused to eat, which made her mother very worried. Aloe's mother was the one who found the letters Veralyn has written and decided to give them to his son because she had pity on her. But Aloe refused to read the letters because she thought Veralyn was the one who reported him to his father for there to be the war. That separated them for good. When the Veras found out about Veralin's pregnancy, they asked him about the father. Even though they were excited, they thought it was one of their Vera men. But when she told them it was an Aloe, they all got disappointed and left. Aloe was asked to go and give the letters to Aloe to read by her mother. After reading the letters, he realized Veralyn was pregnant and opened his window for the first time in a long time because he wanted to see the mother of his unborn child as well. Veralyn wrote another letter to Aloe that he should come and see her, that she wanted to see the father of her unborn child before she was born. Aloe immediately went into Vera's room, and upon reaching there, he saw Vera's father. Immediately Vera's father saw Aloe. He blew his whistle hard, and this led to another war between the Aloes and the Veras. During the war, none of the Aloe men and Vera men were willing to stand firm, so Aloe and Veralyn decided to fight themselves. But because of her pregnancy, she couldn't fight, so the war had to be suspended. The two families argued about whether the child was going to be an Aloe or a Vera. The Veras wanted to keep their child as a Vera, while the Aloes wanted to keep her as an Aloe. They argued until night fell, and then it started raining heavily. After they all departed because of the rainfall, Aloe decided to escort Veralyn back home because of her condition. That night, Veralyn went into labor, and Aloe called upon their community midwife, and with her help, Veralyn delivered a baby girl. After the birth of the child, Aloe and Veralyn decided to name her Aloe Vera. The next day, the news of the birth of Aloe Vera spread through the community like wildfire. Everyone wanted to see the baby, but they set rules that if you want to see the child, you have to go in through Aloe and come out through Vera. If not, you won't be allowed to see the baby. The two families were happy because of the birth of the child, so they agreed. And this is how Aloe Vera brought joy to the community and brought back the togetherness they once had. Aloe Vera, the end. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos like this. Thanks for watching. Veralyn became extremely worried because 3 months passed and her belly began to grow bigger and bigger. She wanted to see the father of her child before she gave birth to the baby, but she still had no response from Aloe.